what's interesting though is that you were kind of a part of the kind of popular group.
Right.
Fullerton is. I mean, man, now Fullerton. I imagine when you were a kid versus now is like a whole new world. Like it's like,
Yeah.
um, you're talking about some of these families are like rich, really really nice, well off people.
Right.
But you're able to kind of assimilate in a way. I don't know what the community looks like around there, but were you kind of like the only Asian friend type of thing, or was it more of like you had really diverse amount of people and you were able to get along with a lot of individuals, and school life was pretty enjoyable?
Yeah, it's diverse. Actually, Fullerton's very known in the Korean community.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because a lot of families from, for example, Korea, they'll buy homes in Fullerton. The kids go to school. So when I was growing up in the 90s, like Sunny Hills was my high school. It was like a top nationally ranked high school, like top 100 in the country. And my school was predominantly, I'd say it was like 50% Caucasian, and like the other 50% was nationalities like Korean, Asian, Indian, so, but it was funny because when I grew up, most of my friends were like the white kids, so I played football and I did all that and partied just like everybody else. And so I was very like even like the girls I dated, like were white, like what I mean. It was just kind of like I was they call it Twinkie, like yellow on the outside, white on the inside.
Yo,
I felt like I was a Twinkie, which is funny. My wife is Korean, so it kind of like always go back to your roots.
So yeah, you're obviously you're in school. It seems like you're like sports and stuff as well. You're hanging out with a lot of different people. Any key friends during this time?
Yeah, my best friends who are still to this day: Adam Rodriguez, Grady Funk, Paul Rodenberg, Milan Patel, who we don't really talk to anymore. He's Indian, but he kind of left out. We were like called the borrachos, the five borrachos, and in Spanish that means like the drunks. And we I remember just like us partying and as kids and getting like Pabst beer at the grocery store or liquor store is like $5. Everyone chipping in a couple dollars. But those are my best friends, and I still talk to them. I just talked to Grady yesterday. He called me, and so it's cool to see your friends growing up. We all played football together.
Yo.
And so we still talk, and our families hang out, not as much as often as you like, because as you get older, you're just so focused on your own family.
Sure, yeah.
That it's like you don't get to hang out with them as much. But I'm glad because they're all successful in their own right in their own life. So it's kind of cool to see us all succeed in our own different path.
Yeah. And can you kind of describe their personalities as well?
Yeah. Adam is funny. So Adam was the most popular kid in school. So as a freshman, as a sophomore, Adam like dated like the hottest cheerleader. And so we're like, score, dude, like he's the first one that rounded the bases, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, so, and he was a stud in football. He was our running back. And Adam right now, he's a fire chief.
Oh, wow.
And so you could tell like he always had that alpha personality. And, his parents had we all grew up in Fullerton. So his parents had the party house. We'd all go over there. His dad, bless his soul, he's in heaven now, Benny, would always play the guitar. And we would go and we would sing like songs. Like his dad like was just like one of those guys that was the coolest dad. Like, stories upon stories to share. He'd play his guitar. We would sing all the oldies songs, with his dad. And Paul, he's a ER doctor right now.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
And he made like the top 8% or whatever it is of schools. So he was always like the uber successful guy. His wife is like the number one realtor in like Seal Beach, so they're just like uber successful. And Paul, his dad is a pastor. His dad passed away as well, so bless his heart, his soul. And so Paul is funny. He's very like the extreme guy in the group, meaning like we would be at a bar and he would like yell at top of his lungs like "woo," and the whole bar would be like, "Who's this guy?" So he was always that like, you know, and he was very proud. He became prom king.
Yo.
Yeah, so like he went to St. Mary's and played football. So he played collegiate.
Whoa.
And big dude, and just like, you know, obviously uber genius. Grady is I connect with Grady the most nowadays in our old age, because we went through a run of being single the most, because like Paul and Adam got linked up. Adam married his high school sweetheart, Jen, and we're all still friends to this day. But like, you know, and but Grady was our wide receiver, like tall, good-looking white guy. Like he was like the slayer of the group. Like he was like, he went to San Diego State, so like he's just that San Diego, and he was that cool, like, you know, when, you know, Top Gun Maverick. Like,
yo,
you know, all goodling white guys at some point would dress up as Maverick or Goose. That's like. Yes. That's like your thing you got to do, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And like he was dressing up as Maverick back in college, and like he like grows out this like most phenomenal beard. So he's like the best looking guy of the group. But like, and it's funny because like we'd go out and like he would always get the chicks, but I would always be a good wingman, you know. Like I wasn't afraid to talk to anyone. but yeah, he did like triathlons.
Jeez.
Yeah, like crazy dude, like crazy athlete doing all these things like that. And he still surfs and does all that stuff like that. So it's funny because we all have like different personalities.
Yeah.
And different things in our dynamic that make our group like the way it is.
So you're obviously kind of transitioning out of high school. Was it hard for you kind of leaving? Because I don't know where did you go to school? I apologize.
Yeah, Sunny Hills. That's my high school, Sunny Hills.
And college? I don't know if it's just.
I went to Cal State Fullerton.
Oh, because you were close. Oh, perfect.
I just kind of just like stayed. I went to like OCC for a little bit. It's a community college.
Sure.
Because I actually, my first major was, I wanted to be an actor for some reason.
Hey.
Like, I think in high school I was like a secret drama geek. Like I took some drama classes that was kind of decent. And my drama teacher was like, "Hey, you're pretty good. You want to try out for this play?" And I always be like, "Nah, you know, I'm good." But like secretly, like I liked.
You were down. You were.
I love movies just like anybody. I'm the type that like will see like a commercial for a movie and someone asks me about the movie, I'll tell them exactly like, "Did you see it?" I'm like, "No, just saw a commercial about it." Like, you know what I mean? Like the trailer of it. Like I have that kind of weird memory. And so I went to OCC to be an actor. I remember talking to my mom, and that's what's so important about having good parents that support you. You know, like my parents never made us feel like we couldn't accomplish anything. That's the greatest thing about them. And I learned as being a parent, like wanting to give my child like confidence no matter what. So my first semester was like, like let me try to be an actor type of thing. And then I realized I'm like, you know, I don't know if this is like a real future. And knowing that my parents were once teachers in Vietnam. So my parents were teachers in Vietnam back in the day. And then so I was like, okay, you know what? Like I'm actually pretty good with teaching, and I had worked in college I had worked for the city of Fullerton Community Service Department. So like the city has a department that's like funded, you know, and what they do is they go to after-school programs. Like we do after-school programs. So like a school would have an after-school program. We'd help the kids with like studying and doing activities and all this stuff like that. And so I was like, man, I'm really good at like
educating.
And I was mentoring. Like the site lead, and like we came up with all these cool things to keep the kids busy after school. And I was like, hey, you know, like I don't hate kids. Like my parents were teachers. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's like some people just hate kids. And I was like, hey, I'm actually pretty good at this. So then I went to Cal State Fullerton, my major was liberal studies to be a teacher. That was my initial
Sure.
job. But in life we changed. Now I'm in mortgages and I get to teach people. That's the cool thing.
And tell us about that, because profession is something that is really interesting. Because when you're in school, and obviously you're a football player, right? So like, you know, you don't have to really kind of worry about so much like, what am I gonna do with my life, right? But definitely when college hits, that's when you really start like, shoot, I gotta figure this out. Like, what am I gonna do? Like, kind of with what is my trajectory of my life? And it's crazy how that the kind of soul of your parents kind of crept in. And by this time, you've already knew the kind of the story, what happened with your parents, right? And what they used to do back in Vietnam. How did they feel about this? Was they even more, or was it just still the same? Hey, we're gonna support you. We're gonna make something.
Same. Yeah,
that's crazy.
They were awesome. They were happy because it was kind of like the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree.
Yeah.
And it's a great profession. It's very honorable. And so I was going to school to be a teacher, and they were just happy because like college was always something that they wanted.
Yeah.
But with my own child, as you get older now, it's kind of like you wish you were taught more about finances at an early age. So when you grow up, like my family, it's always like you got to be careful with how we look at money, because like if you're being taught like money's the root of all evil, money doesn't fall from a tree, and you're looking at negative aspects of money, then you don't realize the benefits money can do for not only society but your family and other people.
Yeah.
You have more impact when you have money. So like nowadays, I want to teach my son more about finances, saving money, the importance of investing, this and that, because I wasn't taught that. I was more taught to have humble like background, to be humility, like you don't need money, it's more about this. And as I grew up as a teacher, I was kind of like, wait a minute, money is actually kind of important.
Sure. Yeah.
Because you don't get paid as much being a teacher. That's just the reality of it.
What was the life of it, like you being a teacher? Because I imagine college life is within itself, I think, where you kind of really find out who you are. You were mentioning when you were young that you were kind of like this by the books. You did what you're supposed to do. You listen to the rules. Do you kind of still feel the same way, your college life? Do you kind of still feel like this is who I am, or do you feel like you're starting to become something different?
Yeah. So the funny thing was so Adam went to Cal State Fullerton with me briefly, and then he went to San Diego State with Grady. But while he was there with me, he was approached by a fraternity, Sigma Pi. And they were like the jocks of the group of all the fraternities, I think. Well, there were a couple other jocks, but they were like the rowdier, get drunk and get in bar fights kind of guys.
Right. And
they're like, hey man, like, let's go to a party. And I'm like, nah, dude, you're going to be a frat. Like, whatever, bro. It's like, no, just come to a party. They're trying to recruit me, and they said, bring a friend. I don't want to go by myself, so I go. And they had this party called Around the World Party. I guess it was a very well-known party back then. So they have a fraternity house, and every room they turn into another country. Oh. So like you go to like a room, and it would be like Thailand, so you have to take like shots, like, you know what I mean? And then you go to like another country, and it's the drink of that country.
Yeah.
Every country has. So I was like, man, bro, like this party is dope.
Yeah.
You need to join this frat. Like, by the way, if you're in fraternity, you never say the word frat. It's like disrespectful, I guess. So I was like, yeah, you got to join them, man. And he's like, I don't want to do it unless you do it. And when you're like 3 Sambuca shots in deep or whatever, I mean, you're just like, yeah, let's do it. And then so like I pledged like that day. They took me up to the chapter room, and they're like, okay, you guys are pledges and yada yada. And then the funny thing enough, I became president of that fraternity. One day I became president of that fraternity, but I was always like that, like calm, like
sure.
Like, and that's the reason why I became the president of fraternity, is because like they needed somebody that was kind of responsible, and like, and then like so it was funny having that background of being a fraternity president. But I never took advantages of being a fraternity president.
Sure, yeah,
I wish I did.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're supposed to get a whole bunch of chicks and all this like that. But like, nah, dude, I I was kind of like just by the books and just wanted to make sure that we weren't suspended from campus for fighting and all that.
It's so interesting. It seems like you're kind of like you're right. Like you have this you kind of have this soul of just wanting to, I don't want to say protect, right? But like I think it maybe, I don't know if maybe at this time you kind of feel this, but you're mentioning now that like you being the older brother, like you come from this space of like, man, I want to be like, I want to make sure that I kind of lead by example in a way. Right. And it's really cool now that you becoming a teacher and I don't know when becoming a teacher,
right.
What did you teach? Like what grade levels?
I taught elementary school. Mm. So I taught 6th grade. I even taught 7th and 8th. And my last year teaching, I was a 4th grade teacher. Mm. Yeah, so it was cool teaching kids, but at the time, too, I was kind of like young and single. Mm. And I was like looking to meet my future wife type of thing. And so for me, it was just an interesting part of my life where I was very responsible as a teacher. And then I also like was partying with my friends. I think we had mentioned during that time, like it was around that 2010, 11, where it was like the EDM phase where like everybody was going out to clubs and house music. And so I had this like duality to my personality.
You have this side of you where you're kind of being the example of like trying to show these kids like, hey, look, making sure they have a good future and kind of like having the, I don't know, embodying your parents in a way, right?
Right.
But you kind of have all this other side. It's like, man, I kind of need to find a partner. Right. And I got, these friends who are like super wild and like, they bring you to this whole new, traveling the world and you're part of this fraternity. And you're the leader of it too, right? So like, you don't want to just leave that behind, right?
Right.
Can you tell me about that, like that lifestyle that now you're living? Like what was kind of your, what was some of the big events during this time being a teacher and, I guess partying and seeing the world,
Yeah, it's like, when you go out, let's say, and you're, now I'm in my 20s and you go out to bars and stuff like that, like you start realizing like, wait a minute, like being a teacher is like a Moodle. You ever heard of Moodle? It's like a man poodle, right? You're like eternally in the friend zone. We've all been in the friend zone, and every guy out there hates being in the friend zone. And that's when you start realizing, like, man, I've been, like, in the friend zone most of my life. And then so when you meet girls and you have a good time and you meet them, it's kind of like, well, why ain't they calling me back? Why are they going on the date? It's because you drive a Honda Civic and you're a teacher and you don't make a lot of money. And I love being a teacher. I was, like, the best teacher.
Yeah.
Every year, everybody was like, I want to be in Mr. Din's class. All the students. I was like the cool young teacher. But then I was like, wait a minute. Like, I can't meet like a good girl. And growing up in Orange County is hard.
Yeah.
Because you think about it, like, people have all these choices. It's kind of like, if you're a girl, like, it's not like growing up in the Midwest or somewhere else. You know what I mean? Where like people here just have a very superficial mindset. And so when they found out I was like a teacher, a lot of girls would be like, he's cool, but like, that's not for me or
sure.
whatever.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like, and what made me change, the reason why I left teaching was like, okay, so during the summers, my friends would be in the mortgage industry. They were like going to Vegas or going to Miami, going to see like Afrojack in Miami, and just like going to Vegas and seeing like Cascade and all stuff like that. And like me, on a teacher salary, I wasn't able to do that. You know what I mean? Like I would be able to go to like bars and clubs. Of course I did, but like to travel and just go on like week-long trips.
Sure,
I
yeah.
can't do that. Like I can go out Friday, Saturday, but not like a whole week,
Yeah.
I was always a great, responsible teacher. And then so I work in the mortgage industry in the summer, and then I'd see my friends uber successful, and they're like, hey man, like we had a, like a heart to heart. Everybody was just like, hey man, like what do you think you're worth? And that's crazy when someone asks you that question. Right?
Yeah.
What do you think you're worth? Like, throw out a number.
Right.
I'm like $100,000, let's just say.
Right.
And then I was I'm like, well, how much do they pay you? Like 50, 60K as a teacher. It's like, do you think you're worth 50 or 60K? I'm like, no, I feel like I'm worth more. I have more to life than that salary or whatever it is. And so that was my like awakening. That was like the seed that was planted that like maybe like there's something else. Because during that time we had just gotten out of the 2008
Yeah,
market
yeah.
crash. And so everybody was affected by it. Teachers were having pay freezes. So it wasn't like I was making all this extra money. It was just like, hey, like there's not a lot of money for anybody during that time. And then so then that was kind of the seed that was planted like, hey, maybe like teaching is not what I want to do the rest of my life.